Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Clean Rates Podcast. I am your host, Izzy, and today I'm going to be reviewing Fahrenheit 451. Now, I'm currently reading a lot of classics. I have an American Lit class this year for my school, and right now, out of all the books I have read so far, they're very interesting, but one of them has caught my eye, and I thought this would be a really fun podcast episode on just talking about this one, and has stuck with me as like the best book I've read so far of my like class. It's like the one of the best books honestly that I've read because it's just so eye-opening. It isn't like super flowery or anything. It's actually pretty much just straight to the point, like Ernest Hemingway style, I want to say. But not exactly. But it is, so far, my favorite book of the entire class, and in my opinion, the best book that I've read so far this year for my school. So Fahrenheit 451 is a futuristic dystopian doomsday kind of book that was written by Ray Bradbury. The main plot of the book, I want to say, is that you follow the main character, Montag. He is a fireman, but instead of putting out fires, he sets them on specific houses and sometimes people. And they're technically targeting specific people. And who are they targeting, you ask? They are targeting people who own or read books in their house. So what they'll do is that Montag and his chief and his other fellow firemen will go and set people's houses, get a call that says, hey, I know someone at this address who owns books. I've seen them reading them and everything. And so what they'll do is that the firemen will go inspect the house, and then they'll set it on fire, and then they'll arrest the people who are reading. So like reading and owning books is illegal. It's taught that people who read are insane. What is normal is looking at screens all day, constantly listening to something like you are right now on this podcast. They are usually targeting people who like own books and that like think differently than what the social norms tells them to do. So like they're the kind of people who like think outside the box. And honestly, to be fair, some readers are insane. I feel like some of you are nodding and others are shaking your heads, like saying, this is ridiculous, I don't fall into that category. I'm just kidding. I know I'm insane, and that is due to me reading sometimes. Because like as readers, we love to fantasize. But one day, Montag meets a girl, I think her name is Clarice, if I'm correct, and who is like those quote insane people who I was talking about just a second ago. She thinks differently, isn't really into technology at all. She like is thought of like as crazy too. And she asks one question that like differentiates her from every other person that he meets that are basically the same person who just love technology, aren't really at all social. They just want to have their little technology things called seashells in their ear and just listen like to noise all day long, watch their quote TV family, and that's it. But she likes to ask thought-provoking questions to Montag, and one of them is the main one is, are you happy? And then Montag goes on this epic rabbit hole of like him asking himself that question, am I really happy? And as he starts to ask himself that question and look into his own like research on like, why am I not really happy? Are books are really bad? Are they really bad as people say and as the government says that they are? Why are we like not letting people read? And he tries to think for himself and independently away from everyone around him and go against the flow of the river of the popular social standings and standards, and tries to figure out for himself what is really true. Is this true that books are evil? Am I doing the right thing on burning people's houses, burning books? Or am I in the wrong? And who is right? And it's very interesting. He also gets, as he keeps asking himself these questions, he meets a few friends that help him try to get the answer. But he also has like strangers, even people he knows, start to threatening him and things like that. It's a really good story. And I feel like this is one that really needs to be brought to light, this book, because when you think of classics, I don't think of Fahrenheit 451. That is not the first book that comes to mind. I think of War and Peace, pretty much any Jane Austen book, maybe the Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, Where the Red Fern Grows, Anne of Green Gables, Jane Eyre, just other books like that. And why is this book not that popular? Well, if you read the book, you'll see like a comparison of today's day and age compared to the book. It's just so freaky. And I'll get that into a second. But first, just reading this book from a literary standpoint, this was actually really easy to read. Even though it's labeled a classic, it does not mean it's like hard to read. It was written in like the 1940s or 50s. And so there's only like 70 years like gap. It's not like 100 years of a difference between that language and this language. Sure, there are some like old, I think just more like older terms than like the slang that we get nowadays, but honestly, it's really easy to read. I really recommend it just because, like, if you're looking for an easy classic to read that, like, you will be affected by, there are only, like, 3 chapters. Technically, they are called stages, or, like, in A Christmas Carol, there's, like, 5 staves. It's pretty easy to read. If you get the normal copy, like, on Amazon or, like, Barnes & Noble and things like that, half of the book is the actual book, the other half is commentary on it. So it's like you're buying the book and commentary on the book. And the storytelling was just done in such a unique way that is very different from most classics that you think about. One of the books that I read this year was The Adventures of Tom Sawyer for my American Lit class. And it was really good. But it had a lot of like different dialogue and that I'm used to just because we live in a different time period than Mark Twain. If you're looking into like wanting to start getting into classics, this is a great book to start with. It's kind of funny because you're reading it and people on Inside the World are being banned and get arrested for reading. The reason why I thought this would be a great book to bring up is because the book is truly a mirror image. It's so scary because it is practically a mirror image of today's society. Just with like people always on screens. Like in the book, they're always on a screen. Like mainly they have something called the TV family. And when that was mentioned, because the TV family is always on, it reminded me of the constant news. It reminded me of YouTube. Like, I watch YouTube way more than I should. And I'm trying to get better at that. And as you, like, watch these shows, like, let's just say you're watching, like, I watch Ian Goobly, Ashlyn Kaylee, and Haley Pham. You watch them, and they kind of, like, become your family. You kind of get close to them. You've never met them in your life. Most of you, like 90% of you, 99% of you who are listening have not ever met any of them in your life. And more than likely will never will. You're connected to a screen. You're not connected to them, even though you think you're connected to them. And you watch them and you get to experience things with them. You're like, oh yeah, they could totally be part of our family. Well, they're not. They're on the screen. You don't know them. And another thing that I thought was so scary is this was written in the 1950s. There's this thing called seashells. And the whole point of the seashells is that they remind me of AirPods so much because you put them in your ear, they're wireless, and it is non-stop talking the entire time. You get constant noise through your ear through those little seashells. Every time I look at my earbuds, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm wearing seashells. Like the book. Sometimes Siri doesn't even answer me when I ask them can you check the time or whatever. So technically it is kind of like the seashells. But you get my point. It's so scary how close this book is to today's culture and what is happening with our technology. Honestly, I think everyone who is listening, you have to read this book. You have to. Just because your eyes will be opened by the end of reading this book. I'm a homeschooler, and I went to a dance a few months ago in January, a winter formal for my my high school group. And oh my goodness, half of the guys there, and girls too, were on their phone. It was oh my gosh, what are we doing here? We're supposed to have fun. We're supposed to have these memories, and you're looking through TikToks. You're going on YouTube Shorts. And I'm saying this for myself too. I go on my phone a lot. I don't have TikTok or Instagram or even YouTube on my phone because I know what it will do to me. But I have Goodreads on my phone, and I go through that hours a day. I'm even though this isn't a lot compared to some people, but I'm on my phone average of 4.5 hours a day. I'm not reading as much because I'm on my phone. Because it's an easy escape. It's convenient. And it's just, I'm ranting again, like I always do, pretty much every single video. But you get my point of it's so scary and how close we are to this book. And then the ending's oh shoot. It's we are all doomed. Our society is messed up to the brink. Now, if you are going to read this book, there are a few trigger warnings in here. The language is pretty mild, I want to say. There's no S word, there's no F word, there's none of that. There's just the DAMN word. That one is probably the only really cuss word used in the book. There may be some others, like CRAP, but the other one, the D word, that is used over 10 times, I think. Honestly, it's not that much. The only romance or I guess spice you could say in this book is Montag sleeping with his wife, although that's not really big because he is married, and they don't go into detail. They just said that they slept together, which it's in the first chapter in the book, but there is a spice magazine. The violence is probably a 3 to 5 out of 10 because it's really minimal in the beginning, except for maybe a few times, and then it gets extremely amped up at the end. And the final chapter, it gets the most amped up. It goes to a 5, but it's not into detail. Does that make sense? People are burning and people get burned alive. I feel that's the biggest trigger warning in this whole book is the spice magazine, and people are burned alive. Some people are drugged, including Montag's wife in the beginning chapter, which is only mentioned once, and then it turns out she's fine. Pretty much a really clean, classic, I would say. Please read this book. It's so important to read this. It is so important. I cannot say it enough. So yeah, thank you for listening for today's episode. I know this was kind of a intense one, and it's a little bit different because I just did one book. Would you guys like me to do more one-on-one books? If you guys know my Goodreads platform, drop a comment on what book I read on there that you would like me to review. I have a fun podcast episode coming up soon. And a very special interview with the first author on my channel. And if you really want to listen, so stay tuned. Stay tuned for that episode. I'm really excited for that one, honestly. It's going to be really fun. Love you guys, and I hope you guys have a great rest of the week. Bye!